Hello and welcome to the next episode of my tutorial series, Subtractive Synthesis on various synthesizers. In the episodes so far, we've gone through the majority of sections of a typical synthesizer, covering the oscillators, mixer, filter, envelopes, LFOs, and modulations in general. This episode, we're going to look at the effects section and see how that can be used to add more color to the sound and build upon what we've done so far. So let's start by looking at the sections of this synthesizer. This is the Novation Peak. It has 3 oscillators. Here is the mixer section, the filter section. These are the 3 envelopes. We have 2 per voice LFOs, and we have some global LFOs hidden away over here. We have a modulation matrix hidden here, and we have an effect section here. So let's create ourselves an init patch. And let's start putting a sound together. But first, let's think, what type of sound? Well, what I've been thinking of is something textural. I think the effects will be good at transforming a more conventional sound into something that can be used as a texture. So I'm thinking I want something that's rhythmic here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pair of oscillators, and I'm going to modulate those oscillators such that the pulse width of the square wave or the pulse wave goes through 0. So I'm going to get a rhythmic sound out of them. So let's try that. Let's see. So you can see as the LFO is pulsing, we're passing through 0 in the modulation. So let's turn this down a little more. Okay, so let's listen to this other oscillator. Rather than making another modulation, I'm going to convert mod envelope 1 into a looping envelope. So mod envelope 1 is now a looping envelope. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so let's listen to both oscillators at once. Okay, I think that works pretty well. So the LFO, LFO1 is the one that's modulating here. At the moment, its phase is free, which is perfectly acceptable. What I might like to do is to adjust the rate of those based on some parameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a sample and hold, and I'm going to turn the rate all the way down to as slow as it can go. So that's LFO2. I'm going to set the phase to 0. Okay, so now every time I play a note, LFO2 is going to output a different value. So I'm going to use that sample and hold value to make a change to both of the LFO rates. So we'll have to dive into the mod matrix here. So the rate of LFO1 is going to go up a little bit based on the value of LFO2. And then the attack and decay phases of mod envelope 1, so that's the attack phase, mod envelope 1 decay phase. I'm going to make both of those a little shorter in response to the value of make the rate modulation, oops, sorry, this is this one. I might make this a little bit more extreme. Make this a little bit more extreme as well. So let's try again. Okay, I think that's pretty interesting. What I'm also going to do is bring the global LFOs into play. So I'm going to set them both to sample and holds. I'm going to set them both to fairly low rates. And I'm going to set the rate sync to off. So now they're not shown on the panel, but we have two other LFOs which are pulsing. I'm going to listen to how the ring mod sounds. I'm going to bring in another oscillator here. Okay, so now I'm going to try and balance these sounds. I'm going to start with the lowest and then go up in pitch. Okay, sounding pretty good. For the oscillators, I'm going to add a little bit of the divergence parameter and add a little bit of drift and also divergence for the filters, meaning that each voice will have a slightly different cutoff, and the oscillators, the pitch of each voice will drift over time, and the tuning of the oscillators will diverge. So let's fine tune a little bit. Okay, I think that works. One of the reasons I introduced this oscillator was because I wanted to be able to use it in this section. So what I'm doing here is I've set the filter to 12 dB. So nice sort of smooth sound there. But I'm using this oscillator to frequency modulate this section. So this is giving us a little bit more movement there. What I can also do is I can use this looping envelope and this LFO to also modulate this section. So let's see how it sounds in bandpass. So what I just adjusted there is the key tracking, which is how much the filter cutoff adjusts to match the pitch of any note that I play. So let me play high up in the keyboard. It's already quite textural. I quite like what's going on. I might add some noise. I'm going to open the filter so I can hear it better. And what I'm going to do is, in the oscillator section, I have access to a high pass and a low pass filter for the noise. So let's bring the band down. So I'd say this is already quite textural. I'm maybe wanting to add a little bit more interest, so I'm going to maybe go for 2-voice unison. I'm going to add a bit of pan spread, so that means the different voices will pick different notes. Will pick different positions in the stereo spectrum. So what I'm going to do is play. Okay, so what I've done is I just latched those keys. So now the notes that I'm playing are held. So this gives me an option now to experiment with the filter section, which is really, with the effect section, which is really what I wanted to talk about today. Although what we have here is a relatively interesting drone. Let me pan spread more so you can hear the effect. So the pan spread itself is actually quite nice on this sound. Let me turn that down a little bit. So let's first think about the order we'd like these effects to apply. Now conventionally, I would probably say, let's go either run these in parallel, meaning that the signal from the synthesis will come out dry and these effects will be added. But we actually have, that's called parallel routing. We actually have the possibility of routing the effects through each other. And I think that's going to be more interesting when we're trying to get some more texture to our sound, which is the goal of this. So I'm thinking conventionally we would probably go chorus into delay into reverb. So I'm thinking let's try and switch it up a little bit and let's go reverb into delay into chorus. So reverb into delay into chorus. So you can hear there was a slight timbral shift there. That's because the sound is now being routed through these effects. So the other effect we have here is an analog distortion. Effectively, this sits after the voices are mixed together. We actually have another gain stage available on this synthesizer, which is the post-filter drive. So one of the things that I find pretty interesting on the Peak is I can adjust the drive in the mixer, I can adjust the drive into the filter with the overdrive, I can adjust the drive out of the filter, and then I have a distortion. So I have a pretty broad range of gain staging options available to me. So let's experiment now with this distortion. So I think the texture's breaking up a little. I'll take it further. So one of the things I can do is I have a master VCA gain control here. So I can turn down the VCA gain and I can get more distortion without the volume going quite as loud. So I'm going to balance those up a little. So I like the texture, it's getting a little more gritty. Let's listen if we want more noise. A little bit. Okay, so anyway, first of the effects, I've put the reverb at the beginning. So I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll start with a reverb. The reverb on this synthesizer, it goes very, very long. So now you're listening to the reverb tail. There's a very small amount of the dry signal still in there. This is the dry. This is the reverb tail. So the reverb goes on forever almost. In a sense, that's too much for what we want. So I'm going to shorten that. And now I'm going to increase the amount. Just until I feel there's some space there. So I quite like the way that sounds. The next of the effects is the delay. So with the delay, there are actually a selection of different algorithms available to us. So this is normal time mode, meaning this time spectrum goes about through the normal range. If I have double, it still has the same amount of memory, so I can now get delays which are twice as long, but the quality decreases. I can go treble, which is even more so. I can go quad or even hex. So hex is going to mean I'm actually running this delay at 1/6 the sample rate that you'd expect. For texture, maybe that's a bit far, but I'm going to try the quad. So, this is my dry. Let's try and set a very low time. Quite a bit of feedback. Let's turn this up. So that glitching you can hear is quite interesting, and that's the sound that it's made when I've modulated the amount of delay that I'm using. I'm going to talk in another episode about modulating delay parameters, but for now, I just want to hear what it sounds like. Okay, so that's the hex delay. I decided to go for the most lo-fi, it adds the most grit here. So finally, we're going to look, let's listen to how it works with a little more signal in. So you can hear some of the resonance coming out there where I turn it up, adds a little bit of a tone, quite a nice sound. But finally we're going to get to the chorus. So the chorus effect, there's a chorus, there's a flanger, and there's another flanger. I think I'm going to stick with the chorus. We can set the amount of feedback, so it's possible to use it as almost like a delay. We have a low pass filter and a high pass filter. So let's first just turn it up to a ridiculous amount. So this is with ensemble, so this has the most voices in the chorus. This has fewer, this has more, so I like the full ensemble. Now I'm going to tune the rate. Another possibility is to tune the depth, so I can have it fast, but the motion less deep. Let's try some feedback. Let's slow it down a bit. And now let's wet dry mix. Okay, so I think when I bypass this, you'll hear this is the raw signal, this is the dry. Note that the dry still includes the distortion because that's analog, it actually only bypasses the digital effects. So I can turn that down, turn this up. So this is effectively the dry signal that we're working with. This is what's coming out of the filter and the voices. And this is the output with the effects chained in the way that I've described. So I think I would definitely describe this as a texture, and a texture was what I was looking for. Maybe we can experiment a little bit. How does the 24 dB filter sound? Try a little bit more of the filter mod. in any case here, I think you can hear that we have a pretty interesting sound. We have something which is definitely textural, and something where the effects section is adding more texture, is adding a little bit of crunch, is adding a little bit of space, and is generally modulating and increasing the interest. So I think that is it for today. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd like to invite you back to watch the next episode in the series, and I'd like to say for now, thank you and goodbye.